In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create an app header in Material UI and how to use React Router DOM to add navigation to your application. As you can see here, I can navigate between these two pages, and this is also supporting mobile layout as well. As you can see here, we can also navigate between these pages using a mobile friendly menu. There are some prerequisites to this video that I'm listing on the screen right now. If you haven't got any of these set up, go and check out the prerequisites video that I posted. I'll leave the link in the description down below. And once you've done that, come back and we'll carry on. In our main.tsx file, what we're going to do is add in our theme provider for Material UI. And then we need to create a file called theme.tsx. In here, we need to create a theme object and export that theme object. We need to import this from Material UI, and then in here we can just set our default color palette. For me, I'm going to set the primary to be black and the secondary to be white. I'm also adding in a background color, which is a bit of a gray. I'm going to go back to my main.tsx file and import this. Also, not to forget, we also just need to add in the CSS baseline right on top of the app component. So this is what our app currently looks like now. We've basically just got a stack from Material UI that is in direction of row with bookshelf, and we have another stack at the end to output the user name and family name, as well as having the logout link. So we're going to get started by creating the header component first. For this, let's go over to our core folder and add in a new file called header.tsx. And within here, we're going to define header, and then we can export header from this file. For this, we're going to be returning an app bar from Material UI. Going to import that from Material UI. We'll set the position to static so that it's fixed at the top of the site. The color is primary and elevation will be set to 0. Now that we've got this, we're just going to head over to app.tsx. Let's just get rid of the content in here and we'll bring in our header.tsx. Get rid of this now. Let's delete all of this. You'll see there's nothing in the app right now. So let's go ahead and start adding in some content. First thing I want to add in is a container, which I will import from Material UI. And then I'm going to set a max width of XL. And then within this container, I'm going to create a stack. Import this, and within the stack, the first item I want, which is the top bar, is going to be a box, which is essentially just a div, and this will be imported from Material UI again. I'm going to set the display to flex, add justified content for space between so that the content is separated apart, and align the items in the center. I'm also adding in a padding top for when media query is at MD or lower. So this is for mobile devices. We're going to be adding a padding top of 2. And then the first thing I'm going to add in here is the typography for the bookshelf itself. So I'm setting this variant to H4, and I'm adding in font weight and font family to this header. If we go ahead and save that, we can now see that something's showing up on the web page. After this, I'm going to add in a stack with direction row and alignment towards the end. And then within this stack, we'll put in our user detail and the sign out button. So first, let's add in our authenticator again. So we'll use the useAuthenticator hook to get the user and the sign out properties. And then within here, we're going to add in a typography, which will say if there is a user, we can output user attributes given name plus a space and the user attributes family name. We can see that now this is being rendered. I'm then going to add in a separator followed by a link, which will import from Material UI, which will allow the user to sign out. Now you can see we've got an app header with the username and last name, and the user is able to sign out as well. We can see that this is functioning. We can sign back in and you can see this is working. The next thing we're going to add in is after the box, we're going to be adding in a toolbar from Material UI, and in here we're just going to add in a disable gutters. This should give us a section here below our initial header, and then within here we want to add in the 2 buttons that we're going to be using for navigation. So what I'm going to be doing for now is I'm going to create a constant called pages, and within these pages I'm just going to set it to have 2 strings. One's going to be called explore and the second one is going to be called my bookshelf. And then for the buttons, I'm going to create a component within here called header button. header button will be imported from Material UI, and I will create a interface for header button props, which will take in path name and children. This button will take in a path name, and the path name will be compared to the current location in the browser, and based off of that we'll know whether the button is actually active or not. And if the button is active, we're going to set the color to black and set the background color to white, and we'll do something similar for the hovering effect. We will also change the variant from contained to text if the button is not active. This we're going to be using the secondary color, setting it to full width and disabling the elevation. So now down here in the toolbar, what I'm going to do is iterate through pages. So I'm just going to do pages.map page, and then within here I can have in header button, which will take in a key of page, and path name will be just page for now, and let's just add in page in here also for the page name. Now we can see we've got two buttons. We can't actually make any of them selected because we haven't implemented the navigation yet, but you can see I can try and click on these. I can highlight over them and I can click on them. These are my two pages that I'm going to be adding to my navigation. Before we start adding in the navigation, I want to now add the support for mobile. As we can see, if we change this to a mobile view right now, it still works, but it's not great. It's not the best. So what we're going to do is import an icon for the menu, and then just before the bookshelf here, we're going to create a box which will house an icon button, and then the icon button will have a menu inside it. Save this and go back. We can see that now we've got this button here, but we only want this button to show up if the user is actually on a mobile phone. So the way we're going to do that is by adding in to the box style properties, and we're going to set display to be an object, and then within this object we can set access to have a different value. So when the user's display is in the XS mode, we'll change it to flex, and if it's MD, then we're just going to change it to none, so then it won't appear if it's MD or higher. So now you can see we can't see it there anymore, but if we go into mobile, we can see that it's actually there, like that. So we're going to be using the same method to change up the rest of the look of this header. For these two typographies, I'm just going to be setting them to XS to not show in XS, and then have inline otherwise. So I don't want to show them. This will come up looking like this, which is a little bit cleaner. And I'm also going to do the same for this entire bottom row. So now we can see that in mobile view, it's only going to show up like this. Otherwise, that's not quite right. So we don't want it to be like that. We want it to be flex. So let's just go back, and that seems to be better. Much better. Cool. So now we've got it looking quite right. We just need to set it up so that we can actually use this menu when we are on the mobile site. So the way we're going to be doing that is using a dialog. So let's create another component called navigation menu full screen CSX. So in here we'll create the props, which will be navigation menu props. That'll take in open, handle, close, and pages. This is just going to be a string for now. This will change later, and we can declare our component, which is then going to return a dialog from Material UI. Dialog will have several properties on it to make it full screen, set to open, and to handle the closing. We're also going to be adding in a transition which is also from Material UI, so that we can make it slide up in the application. And let's just import all of these and add in a transition component set to transition in here. We're then going to add in an app bar to sit at the top of this dialog. This app bar will just have a toolbox with an icon button, which will be a close icon, which we can import from Material UI. This will allow us to close down the dialog and then also have a title. We will then add in a list underneath this toolbar, which we can import from Material UI. And this will render a list of divs, which will have a list item button inside it. Also within the list item button, we will render list item text, and we'll also have a divider at the bottom of it to just separate out all of these buttons. We can then create a handle navigate function, which will just close this for now, and this is what will be used on click for this button. So in our header component, we'll add some state management logic in here. So we have a state variable called open nav. We can use it to set up nav, and two functions, handle open nav and handle close nav, which just basically set these to true and false. And then right at the top above the app bar, we can add in our component which we've just created. Let's just pull that in from there. I'm expecting us to put in pages like this. If we save that, we just get the linting, and then we can use the handle open nav with our icon button here. So let's do on click handle open nav. Now if we go back to our application and we click on this, we can see that this is loading up the navigation, but the buttons don't look quite right, and that's because we put the list inside the app bar. What we want to do is put it outside of the app bar. Just save that, go back. We can see that now we've got this outside of the app bar, and we can use these to close down the menu. We don't have access to the menu on the desktop. Now we've got the UI all done. Let's add in our router logic. We're going to install React Router DOM by doing yarn add React Router DOM. And then from React Router DOM, I'm going to import browser router as router from React Router DOM. And then I'm going to wrap the app around the router. And then within our app file, what we want to do is change this into a fragment so we can have our roots in here. So roots will be imported from React Router DOM. Within our roots, we're going to create a root element which will have a path of nothing, but for the element we're just going to set this to an empty div for now. And then in here we want to add in our different roots within root. So for our first root, we're going to have a root that will have an index property, which will mean this is the main element shown at this index, and we're just going to set that to, let's just say, explore page for now. And then under this we'll have another root which will have a path of bookshelf. This will have an element of bookshelf page. So what we actually need to set up here is an element that will have an outlet to these two roots. So what we need to do is in core create another file called layout.tsx, and in this file we're just going to create a simple component with some breadcrumbs in it. So the layout component does have a container and have some breadcrumbs, and what we want to put inside this at the bottom is an outlet which we're going to import from React Router DOM. This will allow us to render things that we are putting inside this root on the main page. So let's change this from the two divs to a layout component like this. And now let's go here. We can see it's rendering bookshelf and explore page. This is because we have bookshelf in here. So I'm just going to change this to breadcrumbs in here like that. And we can see we haven't got navigation working on this quite just yet, but if we change this to bookshelf, we can see that we're navigating to a different page. Okay, so the way that we're going to be organizing our roots is by creating a folder called util, and then within this folder we're going to be creating a file called root.ts, and then in here I'm going to be declaring an interface called page, and page is going to have a path and a name. Then I'm going to declare two strings which will be the path for explore path and the bookshelf path, and then I'm going to declare two pages which is of type this, and each one will have their own path. So explore page will contain the path for the explore path, and the name is going to be explore. Similarly with the bookshelf page, it has the bookshelf path and the name is going to be my bookshelf. I'm also going to create a helper method in here. So I'm going to import useLocation from React Router DOM, which will allow me to get the path name that I'm currently at. So if I'm on /bookshelf, this will give me /bookshelf. And then I have a function which I am switching between the different paths to find the page for that path. And then I return the page and the path as an object. So this hook use current page, I can then use this inside our layout component. So if I go in here, I can have use current page in here like this, and then I can use this here to output the name of the page that we're currently on in the breadcrumbs. So now I can remove this from here. So now that I've got my routes set up, I can go back to my app.tsx file. I'm going to change this to the explore path and change this to the bookshelf path. Now you can see when I'm on /bookshelf, it's saying bookshelf/bookshelf, and it has bookshelf page. If I change this to the home page, it will say /explore page. If we go to our header component, one way of allowing us to navigate using our buttons is to change the button to a link that we can import from React Router DOM. Let's just add link back in here for the other one. So if we change this to a router link, we'd have to remove all of this, but we could have a to and have path name on there like this. This would allow us to navigate to the things just by using these links. But I want to retain my styling, so I don't want to use it like this. I want to use a button instead. So I'm not going to be doing this. Instead, we're going to be programmatically navigating between our pages. And the way we're going to do that is by using a useNavigate hook, which is imported from React Router DOM. And we can use this navigate hook by doing on-click navigate to path name. Now you can see it's navigating between these two pages programmatically. So the reason this isn't correctly set up is these pages are using these fixed values. We want to be using the pages that we've defined in our routes. So I'm going to be importing explore page and bookshelf page, and now pages has changed into an array of pages. So I need to also change this everywhere I've been using it. So in here, page.path would be better, and path name is also going to be path. And then for the name of it, it's actually going to be name. And then we need to also change this in here. So instead of a list of strings, it's going to be a list of pages. I'm going to import from routes. Again here, this will be path. The text will be name, and the navigation will be path. And we can use the same thing we're using in here, which is navigate from React Router DOM. So if I import this hook, I can use navigate and navigate to path. So if I remove this, I can see that now actually this is working and it's correctly highlighting that I'm on the explore page. And if I click on bookshelf, it's correctly highlighting that I'm on bookshelf page. I've gone to /bookshelf. The breadcrumbs from my layout is rendering as bookshelf/my bookshelf, and I can navigate between these two. Thank you for watching. The next video is going to be setting up our homepage and using the Google Books API to create a search engine on our website so that we can look for and find books. If you enjoyed the series, then make sure to subscribe to catch the next episode as soon as I release it. And I really appreciate any feedback on these videos, so please leave me a message in the comment section down below. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.